Lists. And then let's get started. So this evening is about reflection and celebration. So I want to start with the reflection piece. How many folks here know what Fashion Revolution is? Yeah, I see a lot of hands in here. Awesome. So Fashion Revolution on April 24th, 2013. 1,134 folks lost their lives, and thousands more were injured when a factory in Rana Plaza in Bangladesh collapsed. Many of those folks were garment workers. There were cracks that had been seen in that building the day before, and folks in other businesses had left, and the garment workers were told, get back to work, or you are not going to get paid. And so they did. So that disaster was a wake-up call for all of us as consumers and for the fashion industry. And so that's why we chose to do this on this date today. It was a wake-up call that started a movement that is around sustainability in terms of pollution and waste and ethical manufacturing, and asking ourselves if that super cute outfit, is it worth the mistreatment of other humans and our planet? So, okay, that was totally a downer. Sorry about that. Had to start there, but I said this was about a reflection and a celebration. So tonight, the celebration piece of it. So there were brands and industry experts and organizations that heard that wake-up call, and they decided to take action, and we are really here to celebrate them here tonight. I want to call out this postcard. A lot of folks, you have these. It's a beautiful picture of Paula Mendoza, who is one of the founders of the Women's March, wearing her lovely Madewell stretch denim jacket. It is part of a lookbook that we put together. Yes, the wonderful fashion director, Rachael Wang, here. We're going to hear more about this lookbook, but we wanted to celebrate the many brands who are taking action and working with fair trade certified apparel factories. And so would love for you, we thought it would not be responsible to print a zillion copies of the lookbook, so instead, on the back of the postcard is the URL for the lookbook, as well as links to the shopping guide and some promotions that all of the brands that are participating have put into there. So please go and check that out. So now, I don't want to hold this up. I would love to get to our panel, so let me introduce them. So first, Gonzalo. So Gonzalo Pertile. Gonzalo is the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility at Madewell, where he leads the environmental sustainability and social justice efforts for the brand. Prior to Madewell, he worked in the international development field with organizations like the Inter-American Development Bank, the United Nations, and the United States Agency for International Development, known as USAID. He also co-founded Meso Goods, a social enterprise focused on ethically sourced and artisan-made products. Meso provides sustainable job opportunities for more than 550 artisans from Guatemala, Honduras, and Peru. Gonzalo holds a Master's of International Development Policy from Duke University and a bachelor's degree in business management from the Universidad de Montevideo in Uruguay. So welcome, Gonzalo.
Thank you.
All right, my girl Rachael. All right, Rachael Wang is a fashion director and stylist. So Rachael Wang's progressive and intuitive take on fashion earned her prestigious positions as fashion market director at InStyle.com and fashion director of Allure magazine early in her career. Her influential fashion direction can be seen in her collaborations with brands like Nike, Opening Ceremony, Bergdorf Goodman, and Saks, and her inspired editorial commissions for Document Journal, Telegraph, Japanese and Chinese Vogue, as well as her styling of it girls and up-and-comers like Chloe Sevigny, Alexa Chung, Halsey, Dua Lipa, and Dev Hynes. Rachael was an early champion of ethical and sustainable fashion. In 2017, she founded Rachael Wang Studio, a consultancy which focuses on bringing ethics and inclusivity to creative and fashion direction. welcome Rachael.
Thank you.
All right, and now Ms. Maya Spaull Johnsen from Fair Trade USA, Vice President, Apparel and Home Goods. A little shout out for Fair Trade. Oh, you know what? I'd introduce myself. I'll do that afterwards. Sorry about that. Maya's a thought leader in ethical manufacturing sector, working as a change agent with top global brands to implement fair trade certification for 14 years. She is spearheading a movement that offers tangible solutions to address economic, social, and labor challenges in supply chains. Serving as the voice of Fair Trade USA Apparel and Home Goods program, Maya's mission is to awaken consumers to their purchasing power and support the shift towards a more responsible paradigm. Welcome, Maya. And since I forgot, I'm Anna Banks. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Fair Trade USA. So welcome, everyone. So let's get this party started. We are going to start with Ms. Maya. I would like to start with a question around fair trade overall. So why do you think fair trade is important in the fashion industry? And would you talk a little bit about the Fair Trade Apparel program? How did it start and how does it work?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It means so much to all of us. So, fair trade certification. When you purchase a fair trade certified product, it supports three things: safer working conditions, better livelihoods, and protection for the environment. And the way that it works is we work with global brands who nominate their best suppliers to go through a rigorous fair trade certification audit. Once that factory has achieved the audit, they can sell that product under fair trade terms. And more importantly, they commit to paying a percentage of the purchase price directly back to a bank account at the factory that is run by the workers. And with that money, they decide how they want to spend it: education, healthcare, housing, women's opportunities for advancement. So then the most important part is all of us, when we're shopping, can make a responsible choice by simply looking for that label and knowing that we're contributing with our dollars to a better world. So that's how I talk about the fair trade system.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Gonzalo, I would love to give you the same question. Why do you think fair trade is important to the fashion industry? And then talk a little bit about J.Crew and Madewell's sort of journey with certification and the Cytex factory you've been working with in Vietnam.
Of course. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's really exciting to see such a large crowd interested in this topic, so I'm excited to be with all of you here tonight. So why it's important for the fashion industry, I think our industry is actually changing a lot. We've seen a rise on conscious consumerism and people getting interested in how their clothes were made. Fashion Revolution is a great example of activism in the industry. And I think it's something that it now goes beyond of not only knowing who made your clothes, but also how they were made, under what conditions, how were the workers treated. All these topics are really now getting such a big importance in the industry that I think it's important to have fair trade, which is a non-profit organization certifying factories, working with brands, and really being a bridge for opportunity for the workers as well. So I think that's really something that's changing the industry, and we are really happy to partner with Fair Trade USA. And the work that we've been doing is something that we know it's impacting people's lives. So I think that's why it's important overall. And then the work that we did with Cytex, we started working on a certification with Cytex, which is a denim factory in Vietnam. All the jeans and jackets and skirts that you see here are coming from this factory in Vietnam. So we started that last year, around March approximately, and Cytex got certified at the end of November. It's been an amazing journey. The factory is super committed. They are really leading the way and leading the industry for denim production. They have amazing sustainability practices overall. And this certification for fair trade is an added bonus that really we know that it's having a lot of buzz in the industry, but really in the end it's about the workers themselves and how they can benefit from it as well.
I am rocking my fair trade denim today as well, so shout out to them. So Rachael, you are in the fashion industry, so I would love to your perspective. So we heard someone from fair trade, we have someone on the brand side, and so now someone who is kind of in the styling world. Same question, why do you think fair trade is important to the fashion industry? And also I want to add in, how did that influence your decision to work on the lookbook?
Sure. So as a member of the fashion industry, it's super important to me, and also I really feel like my responsibility to make it a more transparent, ethical, and sustainable industry. And there's no way that we can create a truly sustainable fashion industry without making sure that employees have safe working conditions and that they have a sustainable income. So it was an absolute honor and a no-brainer for me to want to work with Fair Trade on a lookbook in order to just promote and elevate these issues and communicate them to fashion lovers and show like how amazing these products are, how great they look, and to just really give them some space to breathe and for people to kind of just understand a little bit more about fair trade.
Awesome, thank you. Gonzalo, I'd love to come back to you and hear a little bit about reactions from both your customers, but also from employees. Like, how has fair trade been received, both kind of as a movement and transparency for the company, as well as the products themselves?
So when we launched the products in January 29th this year. They were really well received. We got a lot of press coverage for the release that we did. We had a meeting today with the fair trade team, and we were looking at the results. We had more than 140 million impressions on the press releases that were covered through this partnership. So it's really exciting to see that people are looking for this, that there's an appetite for more conscious alternatives when you're shopping. And I think that's very well received overall in the industry as well. We have a lot of brands that are showing interest in fair trade as well. So it's great to see that through our work, we're also inspiring other brands to join the movement as well. For the internal part, it's also an amazing thing. We have meetings every single day, and we talk about sustainability in almost every single meeting that we have. So it's something that it's giving purpose to our associates as well. It's really good to see how people now come to work with another perspective into their daily jobs, that they know that this is something that it's having a return on the people as well.
So Maya, I want to shift to you. So you talked a little bit about kind of fair trade overall. I would love to hear a little bit more about sort of benefits to the workers and like how that really works, and some of the community development fund projects that you've seen. Like, what are some of your favorites?
Sure. So as we talked about, the funds that the brands contribute go directly back into a bank account into each factory that's run by the workforce, and then they go through a lengthy needs assessment process to really uncover together what are the things that we could most benefit from spending this money on. So I would like to tell a story about Sri Lanka. It's really on my heart right now, given the bombings that happened there on Sunday. And Sri Lanka was one of the first countries that we started operating in. And actually, they are very well known for being an incredible manufacturing country. So we were working with the Hirdramani group of factories, and we started in our first factory, and they received the first payment. This was a Patagonia factory. And they decided that they were going to build a daycare, a Montessori daycare, on site next to the factory. And when we went and traveled there, we actually met a mother and heard her story. So I'd love to tell you her story. Her name is Upeksha Madhuhani. And she's a seamstress and really enjoys her work. And when she had her son, she was home for a certain amount of time and then really wanted to go back to work. But she lives 30 minutes walk down a dirt road where she has to go to factory transport on a bus to work every day and come back. And when she wanted to go back to work, there was no one to take care of Tejan, her son. And when the school was built, it changed their entire life. Tejan walked with her to the bus. He sat on her lap on the bus, the only kid on that bus. You know, there's a lot of buses, so there was other kids that were coming from the school with their moms and dads. But on that bus, we have an image of him just sitting on her lap. And she drops him off at this school, and the look on his face of excitement and joy. And she was able to go back to work and, then come at lunchtime and see him, grab his hand at the end of the day, and take him home on that journey. And so for us, that story, that one mother and her son, the opportunity to create a long-lasting impact of education for the child, for her to pursue her career needs and dreams. That's not the only project they've done, but every year, year over year, there's 50 students that continue in that trajectory. And they also did a coconut planting project because that's a food source for them, as well as a micro-enterprise, women's health care. But I think that's really impactful, and we're really, our hearts are with our friends in Sri Lanka right now. But that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, thank you. So Rachel, I want to get into your brain for a second. So you helped us style, for those of you who haven't seen it, this absolutely fabulous lookbook. And so I would love to hear a little bit about your creative process, how you went about figuring out how you would be styling the items from factories with fair trade certified clothing, and how is this project the same and different from other projects that you tend to approach?
The project was not so different from a lot of the projects that I work on. I pretty much approach most projects in the same way. What's going to be best for the brand that I'm working with or the story that I'm trying to tell. But what was really important to me for this particular project with Fair Trade was, rather than it being a big fashion direction that I was trying to create, like a fashion concept, this lookbook, for me, it was really important for it to be about people. So it's about the people who make the clothes, the people who are wearing the clothes in the images and promoting them, and the people who ultimately will be buying those clothes, and kind of drawing a thread between all those humans and just bringing them together in kind of one space. And so I wanted to really, just let the people speak, so to speak, from the images, and not come up with like a crazy fashion concept that was going to distract from the clothing and distract from like the humans that were wearing them and being featured, who were tailors working at factories. And a young man who received a scholarship. Yeah, I'm trying to go back into the question, but so casting for this lookbook was very, very important to me, and I knew that I wanted to work with and feature advocates, and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to accomplish it all on my own, so my friend Erin Simon, who I think is here, is an amazing casting director, and she helped me to get DeRay and Serene and Celine, Sid, and Paula all on board with doing this amazing lookbook. And it was such just an incredibly inspiring moment to have these people whose values that I feel align with the fair trade values to be able to represent these garments. And then another really important factor was just choosing the right photographer. Justin French is a photographer whose work I've been following for a long time. I really think he makes beautiful pictures, and I just wanted someone to be able to take beautiful human portraits and be able to capture the essence of each of these wonderful talent, and he just did such a great job. And it was very simplistic outside of that. He shot on film with natural light on a white seamless, and otherwise it was just about like great clothes being worn by amazing people, made by amazing people, and I think that's what I wanted the images to be in the end.
Yeah, thank you. So Maya, I'm going to shift back to you. There is so much energy right now around environmental sustainability, but there's still so many social issues in the fashion industry as well. Do they need to be connected? Should people be thinking about the human side of sustainability and the environmental side of the sustainability together? Is it important for them to be connected?
To me, there is no separation. You know, if you see blue wastewater coming out of the side of a factory and polluting a river, we know that people inside that factory are handling that toxic dye. There is no separation, and we all need to be on this planet and protect this planet. But fair trade, for me, is about making the invisible visible. Who are the people behind our clothes? How do we invest in their future? And it has to be both in ensuring that the place where they work is safe for them, and then in terms of the output of those factories, it's safe for the planet. So they are absolutely linked for me. I would also add that, you know, in terms of consumer perception, we know that the Gen Zs who are coming up are going to be about 40% of the purchasing power by 2020 of the U.S. population, and that 9 out of 10 Gen Zs say if a company can't tell them their environmental and social stance on how their products were made, then they're not going to support that brand. So, you know, this has to be a message that's carried forward together in tandem.
Thank you. So Gonzalo, a similar question for you. So I noticed that Madewell is now doing recycled swimsuits, which is amazing. So I would love to hear more about your future-facing plans for sustainability, for fair trade, and for environmental sustainability, like how the two of them are going to work together going forward for the brand.
Yes, of course. So we, as Maya said, we acknowledge that the industry is changing, and as I said at the beginning as well, customers are expecting that as well. So I think that sustainability, it's three main things: social, environmental, and economic. And for a brand to be successful, there needs to be some approach to that as well. I think in the long term, it's going to be what drives success for brands, and brands that are not acknowledging that, they would become obsolete in the future. So based on that, we started working with this about a year ago, and we developed a very robust strategy that covers both things: sustainability from an environmental perspective, but also the human dignity and the human justice portion as well. Everything is integrated together, and as Maya said, we are not really separating the initiatives. It's one corporate social responsibility strategy that covers both things. And for the sustainability portion, the environmental part, we're looking at the whole value chain, from our raw materials all the way down to the end of life of the garments. So it's a very comprehensive strategy that we're really looking at from a long-term perspective. We have 2022 intermediate goals and 2025 public disclosure goals that will actually come public later on this year. It's very robust. We haven't really made those commitments public yet, but we'll be doing that later on this year. And we really, we've been working on this for over a year now, we didn't want to make the commitments from the get-go because we wanted to gain some traction with the initiatives that we have as well. I think that also helps us learn if the things that we're doing are working, adapting and changing, and getting really to know the things that work well, and getting a strong team as well. We have part of the team here as well. It's exciting to have such great people behind the work that we're doing as well.
Yeah, thank you. So Rachel, a related question. So as a woke stylist, there are so many choices to make, right, around organic cotton and local and circularity and, fair trade, and I'm sure it can be overwhelming. So how do you go about prioritizing your choices when you're doing projects?
That's a good question. It's challenging for sure because, like I was talking about earlier, every project I do is different and the expectations are different and the goals are different, and I don't always have the power to be able to choose the brands that I'm working with or all of them. But I just think that I try to approach it from an individual standpoint. Like, I have ethics and I want to incorporate the ethics that I have into the work that I do. So from every level, whether it's who I staff my crew up with, and making sure that that's an inclusive and diverse group of artists, or the brands that I'm including and trying to just make sure that the brands are being thoughtful and conscious in some way. I mean, I would love to get to the point where I can choose from all the brands and they're all ethical, sustainable, and making sure that their workers are being paid fairly and the planet and the humans are not being hurt. But right now we're not in that place. So I do the very best that I can whenever I can to incorporate these types of brands into the work that I do. It's definitely a work in progress. Not all of my work is sustainable. I also need to make a living, so it's a balance. So, but like I said, I just try to incorporate my values into every step of every project that I do, and where I do have power and where I do have say, just making sure that I prioritize my values into those choices that I make, no matter what they are. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, great. Thank you. And it actually leads to the lead-in question that I'll bring it back to Gonzalo. So J.Crew and Madewell are one of those brands that made the step to start making some of those choices. How do we get more of the fashion industry to start paying attention to these issues?
So I think it's about raising awareness. This event that we have here at Madewell it's trying to do that. It's getting customers and our teams also have a possibility to interact and share what we're doing, but also I think there are different industry initiatives that are pushing for this as well. We have the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, Textile Exchange. Fair Trade is actually a great organization that's also gathering brands under one common family with similar purposes. So things like these are things that are moving the needle in the industry, and we need to be doing more of that. Also, customers have a say in this as well. It's all about what customers want. So if customers start demanding this from brands, they will hear and they will start also changing the ways they produce their goods, the way they produce at factories. So I think it's about making sure that we're able to bridge a conversation between what customer wants and then how brands are addressing those needs as well. So it's a lot about really opening those challenges for communications.
Thank you. I'm going to bounce the same question back over to you, Rachel, around fashion industry. How do we get more of them paying attention to these issues from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the really exciting thing is we are all here today because conscious consumers like you guys are really passionate about where your clothes came from and who made them. So I think like we're already in this like amazing snowball effect where there's just more understanding and awareness about these issues. But yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this question in my spare time, trying to figure out like how I can rally my industry into, I don't know, like I said before, taking a more individualistic approach, that like each individual, no matter what area of the industry you work in, you try to incorporate your ethics into your work. So like educators, stylists, influencers, buyers, all trying to represent fair trade brands, for example, in the work that they do. So like in a red carpet roundup, like in a trend report, in a fashion editorial, representing those brands and trying to incorporate those brands and just like not be lazy about the work that it takes to just include one brand in your roundup that has ethical principles like woven into the fabric of their business. I also really would love for fashion journalism to like hunker down and do the hard work of like writing stories about these issues and also doing, like I said, roundups, reviewing brands that are ethical and sustainable, to just educate the consumer a little bit more, you know, because there's, you know, for every 1,000 article fashion shopping articles that there are online, I mean, how many are there discussing ethical, sustainable, transparent fashion? So I would just love to see more of that but like woven in an organic way, not necessarily needing to be like 8 ethical brands, like just including one brand that is a fair trade brand into your lineup of jeans, like this great pair of Madewell jeans. And lastly, I really believe that shopping your values should not be a privilege, like that everyone should be able to shop their values. And so I would love to see brands work really hard to make their products, their sustainable, their ethical products more affordable for everyone to be able to participate.
Yeah, and I didn't even set you up for that because that's actually the next question for Maya. So how do we make sustainability more accessible so that it's not just for, you know, the super crunchy crowd or the super wealthy crowd? How do we make it more accessible?
Sure. When we started this program in earnest, I would say about 7 years ago, we had this little notion and this dream that the success we'd seen in the food side of the fair trade business on products like coffee and bananas and chocolate bars, that that consumers were interested in purchasing fair trade apparel as well. And we started this with, 3 factories and 5 small brands. And today we are just astounded. We're working in over 100 factories in 12 countries. We're working with 50 brands. And it's an ecosystem. It's gone from a notion, an idea, to truly an ecosystem that we all play such an important part in. And from the media that write about it, to the creatives who support us, to the brands who are pulling this through, and ultimately to the customer, because every purchase you make, you are having a dialogue with the company. When you purchase a product that is a $5 shirt, it's very unlikely that that was a fair deal for everyone along the supply chain. And we condone that when we make that purchase. But when we stand up and we reward the brands like Madewell and J.Crew and Patagonia, and the list goes on, that have dug into fair trade, and not just kind of 1 or 2 factories, but are making long-term commitments to do this, that's how we're really going to change our industry. And to that end, what was so exciting about launching this program together was that there's a J.Crew and a Madewell virtually in every shopping mall in America, and it's accessible online and at a price point that's truly affordable. So this has been a great step forward in that. I can also say that we are working a little bit with Target on a partnership that will expand into the future, and that will also make more affordable clothes at a fair trade fashion at a more affordable price point. So there's a lot coming, but I would say that really, again, it's about everyone stepping up and asking for this and being a part of the solution. Vote with your dollars.
Vote with your dollars. I love that. Well, now you get to vote with your questions. So thank you so much, panelists. Let's give them a hand. And I would love to open it up now to our audience to see if there are some questions. Do we have mics to float around? Is there? Oh, here, I'll get, it's okay. So there's a question in the back. I'm going to give you a microphone.
Thank you.
And actually, would you give your name and kind of a reference point for your interest or connection in fair trade or Madewell?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much. That was a really informed panel, and I really enjoyed hearing you speak. My name is Fatima. I actually work on the sustainable and ethical sourcing side. And I just want to say one thing really quickly before I move on to my question. I source from Bangladesh. So having this panel today actually means something to us as well, because this was such a key moment in history that really flipped the lid on traceability, transparency, ethical sourcing, and then really came the sustainability part. And when that happened, we had a choice as an industry to either become more transparent, become more ethical, or really lose our biggest export market. So here we are 6 years later, and I'm working with a select group of manufacturers that are price competitive, sustainable, and ethical. And my mission really is to liberalize that, the same as you were speaking about earlier. So in that spirit, my question is, primarily on the brand side, but please also feel free to answer as well. As partners with you, as strategic partners, how can we communicate exactly how we're reducing our environmental impact? How do we help you keep track of it? How do we help you communicate that to your end customer? Because I think the way to move forward is to be partners versus a vendor relationship. Thank you.
Great question. So first of all, I think brand and vendor relations are things that are getting closer, and we're really getting to know our partner vendors. And I think that's also around the conversation topic that we touched upon previously. It's about really putting those channels there for the brand to communicate very closely with the vendor partner. So for us, it's something that we are doing it very closely as well. We're getting ready now to go to Hong Kong to have a vendor summit with all of our vendors. So it's something that we do every year as well. And those are the ways that we can communicate with them as well. As far as environmental measurements, there are different industry initiatives like the HIG index from the Sustainable Apparel Coalition that measures environmental impact across 7 different categories. So those are things that any vendor, any factory can complete it on their own. It's a self-assessment. And then they can share that with all the brands that they are working with. It simplifies the work that factories have to do. It's something that can be socialized across different brands as well. So it's a tool that we can have like easily accessible, and it's really a good way to standardize measurements across all factories as well. So those are the ways that we can do that as well.
All right. Another question that's out there? Oh, I see a red jacket.
Hi, I really enjoyed the panel. Thank you so much. My name's Ibarra. My question is if you could shed a little bit of light, especially from the fair trade side, but also from the brand side, of how you are promoting fair trade in terms of local manufacturing, because the garment industry in New York is like dwindling, as we all know. So are there any steps that you're taking or thinking about in terms of creating jobs in New York City or just within the US and promoting that as fair trade and sustainability? Thanks.
I can start, yeah. So fair trade certification and our model traditionally started with working, with farms and factories in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But over the course of the last few years, we've actually brought fair trade home. So we're working in U.S. farms in California and Arizona, and we also are working in U.S. factories. So we have one of our fair trade factories in Los Angeles, Nature USA. They're an incredible factory. They're a T-shirt supplier. The impact of the fair trade program has been really powerful there. They've been using the premiums for additional income. Many of the sewers there have college-age children, and that extra bonus has gone towards tuition for their children that they would not have been able to pay for otherwise. So that's a great partnership for us. And we're very open. We are a market demand-led growth model. So the brands that we work with nominate their leading suppliers that they feel that they're going to have a long-term relationship with, and they really want to reward the partnership by doing fair trade at those facilities. So we're always asking brands, do you have any U.S. factories? We really want to keep growing in the U.S. So we're very open to it and excited about our work, and we're expanding on farms regularly also in the U.S.
From the brand perspective, it's something that we're also taking into consideration at Madewell. And we recently launched our program called Hometown Heroes, which is actually supporting local makers. These are small businesses that have a craft in hand, and we're really supporting them to be exposed to different customers. We have their products in our stores. We provide them the platforms for them to grow as well. And even though it's not part of the Fair Trade Certified, it's still creating jobs and supporting local communities as well. So we're really happy to connect with local makers.
Is that similar to the In Good Company that J.Crew has?
In Good Company is with third-party brands. This is with small businesses. So if you are like a craftsman that does pottery and you want to sell your product, we have an amazing class of 6 people now, right? That they are making from pottery, quilting, different things that they make, and they have a business for their own. But now we are allowing and really using our voice and our brand to promote them as well and allow them to grow. We have coaching programs for them. It's not only about selling their products, it's putting all the tools in place to help them grow and create even more jobs.
Can I give a shout out also to our dear friends at West Elm? So West Elm is one of the leading fair trade brands. They have a goal to make 40% of their product made from fair trade certified factories by 2020. So they're incredible. And they have a really outstanding local program as well. And so if you go into their stores, you'll see they work with local artisans. And I know you guys have collaborated and learned together. And so I also want to shout that out. I think a lot of companies are really looking at that more closely and the value they can bring to local manufacturers as well as to the customer.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions that are out there? Oh, yep, I see a hand in the back.
Hi, my name is Andrea Reyes. I run the New York City Fair Trade Coalition.
Hi, Andrea!
So I just want to thank you so much for offering this in-depth discussion, because I feel like from past fashion revolutions or sustainable events, we can get just a little shallow and not go too deep. And that's what I love about fair trade, that we have given some depth and some teeth to it. So my question is, as someone who's a part of this movement, I constantly want to question my own ethics and push myself forward. And that means that I have to be authentic and say the things that I'm doing bad in my production or my leadership. So I want to ask you, how can you guys do better? What is one thing that you maybe is a little out of the reach, and not just, tell us about the wonderful things that are happening, but what can we do that's going to push the envelope a little bit?
My thing that I do is actually around environmental sustainability, and every time I do laundry in my home, I don't use the dryer. I just line dry the clothing. I mean, it's a way of supporting the environment. It's proven that from a life cycle assessment, the washing part of the life cycle of a garment is the one that has the largest environmental impact. So those little things that you can do in your own home have a great impact. You might not notice, but in the end, if you add up everybody's laundry, it's a lot of energy, it's greenhouse gas emissions. So it's something very simple that we can all do.
Yeah, so my thing is plastic. And so in my home, every time there's any plastic packaging, we don't put it in the trash. We actually put it separately so we can take it. So we're more conscious of how much plastic we have. And it has inspired me to every bag that I have now has a reusable bag in it. So I never get caught without a bag. So I'm just trying to do my part to keep the number of extra bags that are floating out there like lower. I know it's a tiny thing, but when you see how much plastic we all use and all the single-use things, like it is really depressing. So just trying to figure out how to keep that down.
For me, it's about looking at my own fashion consumption and really being thoughtful. When I'm speaking at events, generally, unless it's fair trade, I open my own closet first and I shop my closet first because I have so much beautiful clothing that just is there for me. And I think the worst thing we can do, by the way, this is my little thing. Once you get awakened to sustainable purchasing and you really want to support the best in class brands, sometimes you have this moment where you do open your closet and you're like, oh my God, I'm not excited and I feel worried about some of the brands that are in the store or some of the purchasing choices I've made. Do not throw those things away. Do not add more waste to the landfill. Use what you have, love what you have, wear it. 30 wears. Are people familiar with this concept of hashtag 30 wears? We need to hold on to these products and give them life and then find another home for them. ThredUp, Poshmark. There's so much happening around reuse and repurpose of our clothes. So that's for me but don't get rid of it yet. Give it a chance. Love your clothes.
That's really good advice. It's actually something that I'm trying to do as well as a fashion person. It's very hard to resist the constant, and not just a fashion person, but everyone, to resist the constant temptation to buy new things all the time, but just resist, and just look at your closet and rewear things or buy secondhand. That's also great too. I'm vegan and I don't support buying any animal products whatsoever. And that's my daily meditation on my contribution to the environment. And nobody likes when vegans riff off stats. So I'm sure you know all of the stats and you can look them up if you're interested. But it's something that keeps me really present every single day, 3 times or more than that a day, and just keeps me focused on what my goals are and what my priorities are. And it's just a constant ding in my mind of I'm doing this because it's for the future. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. All right, we got some other ones floating around back there. I thought I saw another hand. Oh, I see a hand right there.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for the panel. My name is Hyen and I used to be a fair trade ambassador in Germany, so this is really wonderful. As a young creative, and speaking of fashion journalism, 7 or 8 years ago, I always had a hard time to, communicate to my peers and to young people to sustainable fashion. So how would you communicate in advertising and campaigns that sustainability and fair trade shouldn't be something separate, but something that is already given in fashion?
Should I take that one first? That's a really, really good question. I think that it's something that the industry on a whole is trying to figure out how to do that, how to incorporate it authentically and not necessarily to just make it holistic and to make it something that's a part, like I said, of the fabric of the brand as opposed to just something that we're promoting that's a marketing strategy. But I think that, it's really important for the customer to be able to go on the website and read all about the efforts that a brand is doing. And I think that it's really important to do that and to communicate and to be fully transparent. But then as far as campaigns go, I think that those ethics don't necessarily you don't need to necessarily show that this is an organic cotton t-shirt. I think just make the advertising sexy. Just keep making it great and make it really inclusive and make the casting really amazing and hire really talented, diverse creatives to bring their vision and point of view into the advertising space, as we are seeing more and more now, and just continuing to make it look great and incorporate these pieces in the normal way that the marketing, advertising, fashion industry normally treats garments, and not giving them separate treatment, because I think that's the whole thing, is just showing people the broad scope of what's available and making people interested in buying clothes because they look great and because the campaign looks great and they are aligned with the casting of who's in the campaign, and then they can go to the website and find out what the brand is really about and then get excited on that level too.
Yeah, I think so that's my job. So it's super hard. So there's no easy answer. But I do have to say, like, harping on the positive is kind of an important thing. Like, nobody wants to feel bad about their choices. So it is not about like shaming people or guilt or like any of those things. I think it really is about kind of focusing on the positive, and like Rachel said, really calling out the like, here's this really amazing thing we did, and guess what it's doing? It's keeping this number of bottles out of a landfill, or it's doing this positive thing. I think people want to feel good about their purchases or their actions, and so giving people a reason to feel like reinforced with what they did is always a better approach, and more likely to encourage more of that behavior than the shaming thing.
I would also say that when we work with a lot of companies, they sometimes feel a little paralysis around starting sustainable initiatives and then how to communicate them. People ask us, every new company asks us, well, if we're only starting with a handful of styles, are people going to think that these are fair trade and everything else we make is not fair trade, and that there's something wrong with the rest of our product? And it's simply not true. If you are working in an authentic way with, I believe, third-party certification is paramount, especially if you're a larger brand with reputational risk potentially. I think you need to invest and talk about where you're going, have a plan, say that, by 2025, we would like to accomplish this. Keep customers abreast of your journey along the way, check in, report. And if you don't make it to that goal, you can explain why as well. But you have to get started and you have to talk about the good you're doing, and we can't be afraid. And because as Gonzalo said, if brands wait and they don't step forward and do this work, or they don't talk about the work and get credit for it, you're not going to make it in the future. It just, the customer is changing and they care so deeply. But you just have to make sure what you say is authentic. So it's a balance,
That transparency is key.
Yes.
I also just want to add, like, as a consumer, like, I don't expect a brand to be perfect. Like, I think everyone knows that this doesn't happen overnight. And in order for it to happen in a sustainable way for the industry to shift, it's going to be like a long, tedious growth process. And I think that, like, we are all intelligent people that understand that it takes time in order for, like, all of these big systems to change and shift. And I think that it's really important for brands to, like, share the small initiatives that they're doing and say, like, this is what we're doing. We're trying to, like, by this year have this goal to make this percentage better, but right now we have this small collection or this one t-shirt that's all made from recycled plastic bottles or whatever it is. But like, it bums me out when I know internally, because I have friends that do PR at brands, et cetera, that their brands that they're working for have these amazing initiatives, but they don't talk about it in the media, so therefore the customer doesn't know, and then they can't get credit for it, and everyone feels bad about buying those things. So yeah, like, it's not about perfection, it's about just being authentic and communicating and just showing that we're doing the best that we can, and like small initiatives I think are fantastic.
I see another hand over on the wall. Can we get the microphone?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, how are the ways that you guys measure impact? Because I know you were talking about like a very specific anecdote about a woman being able to take her child to, a daycare, but what are the other concrete ways that you guys measure if you're, moving towards your goals of being a more sustainable brand?
Yeah, so in our case, we have already, I mentioned our strategy. Every initiative that we have in our strategy has a measurement behind, because we want to know that we are able to track our progress. So for instance, talking about fair trade, we're going to have specific commitments made as far as what percentage of our assortment is going to be fair trade. We're not ready to disclose those yet. We'll be doing that later on this year. But it's going to be exciting to show really all the work that we've been doing behind. And yes, as you say, Rachel, we are going to be loud about that as well. We really want to show that the work that we're doing is robust work. And also that it's also a journey. I mean, we're not perfect. We started this journey a year ago. And then as far as measurement goes, we're committed to doing the initiatives that we have and delivering on our commitments. But we know it's a journey, and it really takes time for that to translate into our customers sometimes, but we are really committed, and from the top of our organization, from really the leadership, there's commitment and excitement about this as well. It's something that we know it's good for the planet and for the people, and we're committed to doing it.
Yeah, so for us, so as a not-for-profit, we actually do have our own scorecard, and there are a couple of metrics that are super important. So one is around the number of people around the globe that we are touching with our program. So Maya mentioned that I think there are close to 77,000 workers that are now in factories that are fair trade certified. So we're always doing a count on that. So the other thing is connected specifically to our model. So for every item that is purchased, there is the fair trade premium or the community development funds that are going back specifically to the workers, and we keep tally on that. So we're up to $600 million in incremental income going back to workers around the globe in the last 20 years. So that is a continual, yeah. And then specifically for the apparel program, do you want to do a shout out to the dollars that come back?
Sure. And that 600 million is for, we work with about 2.5 million farmers, fishers, and factory workers. So cumulatively, that's the reach. Yes, the dollars back in the factory program are really exciting. We're so new, but from 2011 to 2017, we generated about, the brands that we work with generated about $6 million back to the factories. But last year alone, 2018 alone was $5 million in premiums. So the magnificent growth we're seeing in this program, this sort of doubling year over year of money back, is a testament to the growth we're seeing from the brands and the impact that's going to have. We're really excited about the future. Another thing that we do that's interesting is we do direct mobile surveys to the workforce in some of our factories. So we ask a series of questions in which they can anonymously and in confidence and safely share their experience working in the factory. And, were you part of the Fair Trade Committee vote, things like that. And so we're also finding creative ways, other than, of course, we have feet on the ground and we're engaged very deeply with the committee on a regular basis, but we're also using anonymous data that we can then roll up and compile and start to see trends in the experience and working in the factory and the impact of the Fair Trade program. So we're trying to get at it in a myriad of ways.
Cool, one more question? One more floating out there? Oh, did I see a little hand floating back there? All right, well, if not, oh, I'm sorry.
So, sustainability is basically about ethics. So my question has to do with materials. I'm interested in, presumably some materials are more sustainable than others. So my question is about the design ethics in terms of choosing or having to choose materials based on the sustainability of them. Is that question clear?
I can start with that if you want. So yeah, part of our strategy is environmental sustainability and looks at the raw materials that we use. We also identified that throughout the value chain of garments, at the raw material level is where we have also some larger impact as well. Not as large as I talked before in the washing process, but we do know there's an impact there. So we also have a strategy behind our raw materials and how we are transitioning into more sustainable alternatives. And what Anna mentioned before, like recycled swim collection that we have, those are things that put less pressure in virgin resources that are from fossil fuels. So those are small things that we can do, but if you add up, it's actually a great impact. So we do have a strategy around that. It's a comprehensive strategy around 5 different categories that we have: wool, leather, cottons, cellulosics, and synthetics. So around all of those 5 categories, we have specific materials identified that we can switch into more sustainable alternatives. And we have targets as well by 2025 to have specific volumes purchased through those 5 more sustainable materials.
Okay, thank you.
So I know all of you had a choice of what to do this evening, so I want to thank you for spending it with us this evening. And then I want to encourage all of you to exercise your right to choose every time you buy something, use things more times over, be more conscious of your purchases, support those brands who are really making an effort out there. So thank you, everyone.